Hey guys, happy Wednesday. Today you are going to continue some of the notes. It should not take very long. It's going to be shorter than yesterday. Oops, that's the bell. Sorry, I'll pause for a second. Okay, and what you're going to do is click on the notes from yesterday, and you're going to do the blue part on the note. So if you go to yesterday, which was Tuesday, and click complete only the red part. So go ahead and click on that. And then you're going to open up your notes, right? And they look like this. Okay, we did the red parts yesterday. So we did this, the cell membrane, the nucleus, the cytoplasm, and the mitochondria. If you do not have these filled out, go back to Tuesday, and there's a video right here. Whoops. There's a video right here that I placed that'll tell you all about what we did yesterday on Tuesday, okay? If you're all good and the red parts are done, let's talk about what you're going to do today. Today, I'm going to share with you what these blue parts are, and you're going to take notes just in the same way we did it before. So you're going to learn about the endoplasmic reticulum, or what we call the ER for short, ribosomes, and Golgi bodies, okay? Then you're going to come down here, and you're going to answer the two blue colored questions, okay? And yesterday, I think most classes did this one. If you didn't, make sure you fill that in. I can't remember if we did that in every class or not. Okay, but you're going to fill out these also. So what I'm going to take you through are the slides, and we're going to do just like what we did yesterday, okay? So let's go back and have our notes ready at ER, okay? If you remember, we're talking about let me find the right stuff. Oh my gosh, here we go. Cell organelles, right? If you remember from yesterday, cell organelles are parts of the cell. So they're like the organs in our body, but we add the little L's part on it to mean big organs, right? So the tiniest parts of cells are the organelles. And if you remember the bad video, or you even want to go back to the video and enjoy it, the video said cells, they're made of organelles, right? So all these little parts we're talking about, right? And we talked about yesterday how the plant cell is kind of box-like, right, and square. The animal cell is kind of squishy and circular. And then we also talked about the cell membrane, how it protects the outside of the cell, right? And lets things in and out. We talked about the nucleus, which is the boss. And then we talked about how there's cytoplasm, that goo that's just holding everything together. And then we also talked about the mighty mitochondria, the one that takes our food and makes it into energy. Okay, so let's start and talk about endoplasmic reticulum. That's a lot to say. Or for short, we say ER. So try saying that with me. Endoplasmic reticulum, okay, or ER. The endoplasmic reticulum is always around the nucleus. So this is a plant cell, okay? We can tell because it's a nice box. And remember, the nucleus is always the circular thing. Sometimes it kind of looks like an avocado or some kind of fruit, right? So this is the nucleus, this purple thing. Always hugging right around the purple thing is what we call the ER. And I think the ER sometimes kind of looks like it's like an underwater plant, or like squished little membrane sacs. Basically, it's these flattened little, or kind of like you took a noodle and cut it in half and smushed it. That's what the ER looks like, okay? And it actually is a whole bunch of pathways that basically are responsible for transporting things throughout the cell. That's basically what the ER does, okay? It transports materials throughout the cell. So something that would come from the nucleus would go through all these channels and out into the cell and then out of the cell. So it's like this transportation system. So I kind of think of it as like trains or sidewalks or buses. It's kind of like a whole system, a route that takes things throughout the cell, okay? I also kind of remember, and this is kind of a weird, but it helps me remember, that the ER, if you think about the ER, the emergency room, that's a really busy place, right? If you come in the emergency room and like your hand got cut off or something, they would rush you in real quick. They would put you in some kind of wheelchair or maybe like a gurney, and they would push you to the next room, and they like immediately try to do surgery and work on you, and they'd be rushing all over the place, kind of like if they were transporting you all over the hospital to help you, right? So that's kind of how I think of the ER. It's a place where things are moving all around. Okay, and it's always looks like this and is hugging around the nucleus, okay? So this is a plant cell. The ER is also in the animal cell. So here's our squishy animal cell. Here's our nucleus, right? The center kind of looks, in this one, it kind of looks like a spaghetti in a bowl, but that's the nucleus, right? And then hugging it really close are all those things that kind of look like squished noodles. That's the ER, the endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, and that's in an animal cell too. So it's actually in both. Okay, so let's stop and take notes on that. Oh my gosh, where the heck did they go? Okay, so the endoplasmic reticulum we said was in the plant and the animal. So we're going to write down both. And you know what? Hopefully you can see this. Let me make it bigger. There we go. Both. Okay, the job of the endoplasmic reticulum, if I go back, the job of the endoplasmic reticulum is it transports materials around the cell. So that's what I'm going to write down. Transports materials around the cell. Okay, it's kind of like the transportation system. And you know what? I'm going to make these bigger so you guys can see them. I know they're ridiculously large now, but that's okay. All right, transports materials around the cell. That's the job of the ER. If you need to stop this video to type that, do so and stop it. All right, so one kind of interesting thing about the ER is that there's two types, okay? There's what we call the rough ER. So if you think about something that is rough, it's like bumpy and not smooth. And then there's also something called the smooth ER. And basically, the rough ER means it's this part again, but it's the part with the bumps on it. So do you see these blue looking noodle things? See how some of them have bumps on it? That's what we call the rough ER. The smooth ER, it's the stuff that doesn't have bumps on it. Kind of crazy, right? So let's go look at the plant cell. I think it was hard to tell, but if you notice, there's these parts that have dots on it and then parts that don't. So rough and smooth. They still are both involved in transportation, but the ones that have dots are the rough ER. The ones that don't are smooth ER. Okay, so let's go back to our notes. We're going to go down to the bottom of the chart, and it says there are two types of ER. One is called smooth, and the other is called rough ER. What do you think is the difference? Well, let's think about the answer. The difference is one has bumps on it, and one does not. Oops. And one does not. You could even say the one that has bumps on it is called the rough. Whoops. The rough ER. And one does not have bumps. That's called the smooth ER. How smooth it is, okay? Like when you shave, you're all smooth because you don't have the bumps, okay? All right, so let's go back. Stop your video if you need to stop me. Okay, so those bumps have a certain name. They are called ribosomes. Say that with me. Ribosomes. A lot of people say ribosomes, like it's a pack of ribs or something. It's not. It's called ribosomes. Say that one more time. Ribosomes, okay? Ribosomes are just the name for the dots, okay? And actually, the dots are in two places. So if we look at this, the square box is a plant cell. We notice the nucleus here, and we notice these things hugging, right? The little pasta noodles flattened hugging. That's the ER, the endoplasmic reticulum. And if you notice, part of it is smooth, so that's the smooth ER. The part with the bumps is the rough ER. Okay, those bumps are called ribosomes. If you notice, not only are the bumps here, but they're also floating around in the cytoplasm randomly in the cell. Let's take a look at what it looks like in the animal cell. Here's our squishy animal cell. Here's the nucleus, right? Here's our ER. Here's the bumps on the ribosomes. Here's the smooth ER. It doesn't have bumps. And then look at, throughout the cell, there's these dots. Those are ribosomes too. So ribosomes are either on the rough ER or they're floating freely inside the cytoplasm of the cell. So stop your video for a second and let's do those notes. So ribosomes, so let's actually go down to third. In what two places can ribosomes be found? And we said they can be found on the rough ER, right, because it's bumpy there, or floating around in the cytoplasm, okay, and they would be free floating. All right, now let's go up, and we know that ribosomes are in both, so we're going to write down that they're both in plant and animals, but let's find out what they actually do, because we don't know what they do yet. So let's go back. So ribosomes are the dots, and they make protein for the cell. So basically, they help make things for the cell, things that the cell needs to function. And we call those proteins. A little bit different than like the protein, the meat we have to eat, but kind of the same thing. They allow the cell to do work. Okay, and I kind of think of them like little construction workers. So if the cell were a construction site, the construction workers, the things that are actually moving around and doing some of the work and making stuff and making products and making the building, or if they were construction workers, right, are the ribosomes. So they make proteins. So let's go to our chart and let's write make proteins for the cell. Okay, so the proteins will be really good in helping the cell get certain things done. Like proteins are used for building DNA, for helping doing a whole bunch of different things in the cell. Okay, you just need to know the ribosomes make proteins and they're dots. Okay, we got one more to go. This last one is called Golgi bodies, or sometimes we call it the Golgi apparatus. Okay, so let's talk about what that is. Okay, the Golgi bodies is the last one. The Golgi bodies, I always think, looks a lot like the ER. They're flattened little sacs, or they kind of look like weird flattened algae at the bottom of the ocean. But here's what Golgi bodies look like. Look at this. In the animal cell, it's these orange things. Doesn't it look a lot like the blue ER? I think it does. Okay, and actually, if you look at this, they're orange colored here too. That doesn't mean they're normally orange colored. They just both happen to be orange color. But do you see how they also look like noodles that have been cut in half and like smushed? Okay, those are Golgi bodies. The key to the Golgi bodies is they're always usually not hugging the nucleus. So do you see how this is hugging the nucleus? This is a little further away. ER is hugging the nucleus. Golgi bodies are a little further away, okay? So that's how we know they're the Golgi bodies. And Golgi bodies are kind of cool because they're kind of like the last stop for the cell. When the cell wants to get stuff ready and packaged to leave the cell, that's where they go, is to the Golgi bodies. So Golgi bodies get things ready and packaged and organized and sorted to send out of the cell, which is usually why they're close to the edge of the cell too, or closer to the edge, because things will go there before they leave the cell. Okay, and if you notice, Golgi bodies are in animal and plant cells. So let's rock our last notes. Here we go. Okay, Golgi bodies are in both. Okay, Golgi bodies, we'll say package and get things ready to leave the cell. So before things are shipped out and leave the cell, they go through the Golgi bodies and are kind of organized there. So they package and get things ready to leave the cell, and they're in both cells. So everything that we've talked about so far exists in animal and plant cells. Pretty crazy since we look so different. Okay, that's it, guys. You did all the blue. Tomorrow we'll do a real quick green, and then we're going to color. Okay, have a great day, everybody. You're all done. You do not need to turn this in. Just close out of it and you're done.